Hello. I bring you greetings in the name of all that is true and just and holy. It's my honor to serve our city as both a Christian minister and as the director for faith-based and interfaith affairs at City Hall. I want to say a few words that are grounded by conversations I've had with people in community with me, people who feel left out of the political debate, people who feel that voting perhaps has no consequence, people who feel shamed into participating in a process that never cared about them. I'm talking about folks who can't cast their votes without losing a half a day's worth of pay. Folks who literally cannot access a polling place because they have unreliable or non-existent transportation. Talking about folks who can't afford childcare on election day, folks who have records that can't be expunged or forgiven, folks whose taxes are accepted but whose ballots are not. These are folks in my world who have enthusiastically voted before, but then the game changed. New district lines were drawn and new rules were made and new lists were made, and suddenly the influence that they hoped to have disappeared. Why then, they ask, talk about a duty to vote when systems and circumstances cooperate to make a mockery of that duty? They say people didn't shed blood, sweat, and tears that we might have the right to be disillusioned, to be disenfranchised. Well, I agree. I agree that shame is not a righteous motivator. I agree that voting rights do not immediately translate into our crooked systems being made straight, our burdens immediately being lifted, our faintest cries suddenly being heard. But I have faith, and faith, I believe, makes the difference. Now, faith doesn't, for me, mean religion. I'm talking about faith. Faith is the act of making a choice in an environment where conclusions seem to be foregone. The same old seems inevitable. Faith, the act of taking up a rightful space in places that were not made for you. Taking up space on maps that were drawn without you in mind. Taking up space in lines that you weren't meant to stand in. Taking up space in conversations that you weren't meant to change. Faith means having victory parties that you weren't even invited to. To vote is to make a choice to take up space in, yes, an imperfect system. To vote means to take up space over and over again, to defy inevitability, to stand a chance in an attempt to count, in an attempt to matter, in an attempt to refuse to be overlooked. Voting, then, for me, is an act of faith. Voting is believing that power is not given from the outside, but activated from the inside. So today, I urge you to bring your body and your mind and your heart to the polls to vote in the election on November 3rd, not necessarily because of a mandate, but because you have deep faith, deep imagination. I urge you to vote because you believe that what we currently have is not the only thing possible. My grandmother, the one who introduced me to faithfulness, loved to sing these words. I'm so glad trouble don't last always. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it, and the world can't take it away. She was declaring that she was compelled by something deep within to believe that right now is not tomorrow. Why? Because by faith, we believe that our action today, our vote today, can change tomorrow. So vote. Go vote because you imagine tomorrow. You imagine justice tomorrow. You imagine full representation tomorrow. You imagine that harm can be reduced and even completely eliminated tomorrow. Vote because you imagine that people can actually experience deep, unspeakable joy. People can actually thrive, if not today, then tomorrow. Show up and stand in line with others because it's true. We don't imagine in isolation. We imagine together as a collective. Vote because you want to stand with others so that your imagination can be ignited by theirs, so that you can combine your vision with their visions. Now, I acknowledge the barriers. I acknowledge the cynicism and the anger and the pain and the apathy that many of us might be feeling. And I want to invite you to imagine with me. Will you count yourself even if others have counted you out? Will you imagine and then create a more just and joyous political and social and moral arrangement with me? Let's imagine together. Let's vote on November 3rd.